You're listening to Wrestlechat Radio.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of Wrestlechat Radio. Marcus Kane coming to you live from the SBTV studios right here in New York. And for the next hour, that's right, 1 hour, we'll talk about that in a minute, we will be discussing the world of professional wrestling. We got a lot to talk about today, folks. WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia, Andrade being released from the WWE, AEW facing what could be a critical crisis. But before we get started, we do want to give you the news. And the news is that we will be starting to upload our episodes to YouTube beginning of October. So we are going to be switching all of our formats to a 1 hour format, including this show. And you'll be able to catch it on YouTube as well, starting in October. Fingers crossed that everything goes well there. We'll keep you informed, but that is the plan, and hopefully that will take place starting in October. So let's get right to it. Let's start with Andrade being released. Now, there has been a plethora of information, and even I am guilty of, I guess now, putting out some information that's not true. If you follow our YouTube channel, you know that I made a video on Andrade, and I had said that while Andrade had been released, they had said it was not related to drugs, it was not related to alcohol, and it was not related to his marriage or former marriage to Charlotte Flair in any way. That indicated that it was probably a behavioral problem, and that behavioral problem was probably he was very unhappy with his current position in the WWE, being a mid-carder, maybe even a little less than a mid-carder, not being used very much. They started using him in main events a little bit and putting him in these, main event matches like the Money in the Bank match, things like that, and then they just kind of stopped. And from what I was told, Andrade showed up at a TV taping. He was very unhappy about what was going to be going on during that TV taping, and he was asked to leave. And during the absence, they decided to release him. Well, now some more information comes out that says, well, that's not exactly true. He did, in fact, fail one wellness test for what apparently is narcotics, some kind of drugs. It's certainly not marijuana. So now we're not really sure. I mean, it looks like it's a mixture of things. It looks like Andrade's unhappy. He takes it out on whoever's backstage and says, I'm not going to put up with this or whatever. He's already failed a wellness test. And they told him to go home. And then upon further examination of his issues, they said, you know what? We're just going to release him. Don't know if this has anything to do with Charlotte Flair. Don't know if this has anything to do with, any kind of performance-enhancing drugs. They're not going to tell you. But I knew something was up, and here's how I knew something was up. Because if they didn't want to use Andrade, they certainly would have sent him to AAA. In AAA, Andrade would have excelled. He would have been a big, huge star. There's no question about it. And he would have been in a format that he really enjoys. So I knew when they didn't send him to AAA, something's wrong. It can't just be he's unhappy with his position. Now, further details are coming out. So it looks, Mike, as though several things led to Andrade's release. One being unhappy with his position. Two, being very vocal backstage about it. And three, apparently there's some wellness test that he failed. And you have to think also that maybe, just maybe, there was some negativity there somewhere with his former relationship. I don't know that for sure, but it looks like there's several issues that led to this.
Yeah, and it's sad. And it's sad that he's not either going to, because I think he'd also have been big in TNA as well.
Yeah.
So and plus if you look at him, he's 235, 240 pounds. He's not your typical Mexican wrestler. He's a little bit bigger than that. So, you look at him and you say, okay, and you look at him, say, versus Vikingo. Vikingo's not a big guy.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And and Andrade may have 30 pounds on him, you know. So, and a lot of those guys in Mexico aren't big guys, so he'd have been a bigger guy. He'd have been he'd be considered a heavyweight in Mexico. In other words,
yeah, no question about that. And it's not, Tom, because of his athletic ability or his wrestling ability, because we know that when he was in NXT and he was being managed by Zelina Vega, he put on some fantastic matches. But it seemed to be that even his first run in WWE, he got stale kind of quick. It's almost like he became complacent, and all of a sudden he kind of eased up. And then when he came back from his AEW jaunt and was rehired, I don't think he ever really connected with the fans. It seemed like he had walked into the WWE and said, okay, I'm back, make me a star. And the WWE's philosophy was, okay, you're back, show us why you should be a star. And I think that's where probably the clashing of the heads came, and the WWE realized this is not going to work out.
Yeah, and I will say this. I mean, there's a lot of workers that come up from NXT that light it up down there. Andrade was one of them. Johnny Gargano was another one. Tommaso Ciampa was another one. And then you look at them on the main roster and you're like, they're not really doing anything. I mean, yeah, Ciampa and Gargano were tag team champions, and they're starting to do a little bit with them, but what did they ever do for Andrade after he came up to the main roster the first time? They didn't really do anything. I could watch Gargano and Andrade for matches in NXT over and over again because they're so good and so entertaining that you're like, wow, where is this performance on the main roster?
Yeah, but you're right. They didn't do that. But at the same token, it didn't seem like Andrade was excelling when they did give him the chance. They put him in like that series of 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 matches. I don't know how many he had with Carmelo Hayes. And the fans weren't really taken to him. And they stuck him in the Money in the Bank ladder match. They stuck him in a couple of different matches, hoping, I think, that he would catch fire. They even gave him those promos where he was, reintroducing himself. And nothing seemed to work. They put him in a tag team. That didn't seem to work. It seemed like the only thing that worked for Andrade was having Zelina Vega for his manager, speaking for him, and that push that they gave him. Once that was gone, it seemed like there was just nothing left there. It seemed like he couldn't connect with the fans. So I'm really not shocked, Todd, that they let him go. I am shocked that they didn't transfer him to AAA. But if there's behavioral problems or there's problems with, performance enhancing drugs, that would probably be the reason.
Well, we've been saying for a long time about Andrade and everything. When he was in NXT, he tore the roof down there. And when he got to the main roster the first time, he was not getting over. And when he left, he went to AEW. He sort of tore the house down there over that way for a short period of time. Then he came back. Like, he just don't want to be there in the WWE. He's like, I'm here to work. Like,
see, that's the thing about Andrade. You make a good point there. He seems to do well, like, initially. And then all of a sudden, he wants everything handed to him. That was the trouble in AEW. He was backstage in AEW causing trouble because he's saying, I want to be a main eventer and a big star and this, that, and the other thing, but you can't justify it. If you can't justify it, he's not putting asses in seats. He's not making people tune in. You got to do that. You got to connect with the crowd. And Andrade had a very hard time connecting with the crowd. Again, that's why I thought if it was just a matter of we don't really have anything for him, they would transfer him to AAA, where I'm telling you he would have connected with the crowd. So when I heard he was released and not just shipped down to AAA, I said, something doesn't sound right. I know I'm being told it's not issues with alcohol or drugs. It's nothing to do with his former marriage. And I was a little suspicious of that. And I did make the video saying that's what they said. But in the back of my mind, I thought to myself, yeah, that's got to be bull. Unless he really went on a rampage backstage and they said, we're not working with this guy at all, they definitely would have shipped him down to AAA. So Andrade is gone. I don't know. I don't think AEW is going to want him back. I don't know where he's going from here, probably to some other federation down in Mexico or whatever. But Andrade might have burned his bridges behind him here because the WWE is no longer owned by the same people, run by the same people. And I think once they're done with you, they're pretty much done with you. So I don't know where Andrade will end up. I don't think he's going to be the star, national star that he thought he was going to be. I'm not even sure he deserves to be because, again, professional wrestling is not just about what you can do in the ring. Andrade in the ring is as good as anybody. But when it comes to cutting the promos, connecting with the crowd, forming a really good feud, being able to just connect in a tangible way, he can't do it. He just can't do it. That's why when somebody came along like Angel Garza, who did it so quickly, and had the crowd literally jump in the barricade trying to get at him his first night on Raw, I said, that's incredible, because you usually don't see that. Anyway, Andrade is gone, and we'll see where he ends up. Second thing we want to talk about is WrestleMania 43 is now going to Saudi Arabia. And man, are the fans pissed off. And I do not blame them. Especially the UK fans. They are just livid. And again, I don't blame them. The UK fans have been begging on bended knee, please give us a WrestleMania. And they have been told, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. If they didn't deserve the right to be first, or don't deserve the right to be first, I don't know who does. But it's not about that anymore. It's not about loyalty to your fans. I guarantee you, if some third world country had have said, we got $1.5 billion for you, then WrestleMania would be in some third world country. And they don't give a crap if people brought, their pack animals to the freaking WrestleMania. It wouldn't have mattered to them. This company no longer cares about its fans. I've been telling you that forever, and now we absolutely have concrete proof. Not only did they go on record, the president of TKO, saying, well, Vince McMahon priced his ticket prices and his merchandise with families in mind, and you can't do that. You're selling yourself short. We plan on raising ticket prices, not lowering ticket prices, pretty much taking families out of wrestling. But now they're saying the Saudi Arabia deal, Saudi Arabia gave them a whole bunch of money. Guess what this does? Not only does it isolate the fans, because I got news. We hear, fans go internationally. There are people from the UK that come to the United States and whatever. Yeah, there is. They're not going to Saudi Arabia. They're not going to Saudi Arabia. And what else that does is right around WrestleMania weekend, we would see a lot of federations, a lot of minor federations, and even some major federations hold events, hold conventions, hold different things, different seminars and whatever it would be. And it would be a whole big WrestleMania weekend where wrestling was front and center. Did they piggyback off the WWE's success with WrestleMania? Of course they did. But it was still a great experience for fans because you could say, well, I can go to the WWE meet and greets, but then I can also go attend some other federation's event that's happening over the week, WrestleMania week, really, not even weekend. And I can attend some conventions and I can make a whole week of it. And it's nothing but a WrestleMania week. Well, that's gone now. None of those minor federations are heading to Saudi Arabia. So there is going to be no WrestleMania week like there used to be when it was in the States. It's not happening. It's all about WWE now. Now, you could say, well, if they had it in England, yeah, the English federations, they would have done it. They would have came forward and had their events and their conventions. Saudi doesn't have anything. It's all going to be about WWE. You're left out once again. We don't care if you can get to WrestleMania Live. Tough. We don't care if you want to have that fan experience of a whole WrestleMania week where there were many different federations and conventions to go to. Tough. The Saudi government ponied up, and that's all we care about. I don't know how much more obvious they can make it, Mike, that they basically don't give one single damn about their fans.
I don't know either, and correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there at one point like either WrestleMania or some other event that was in Wembley Stadium at one point?
There was a large event, but there's never been a WrestleMania outside the United States.
Right. And look, here's the deal. I mean, you have a number of people. You have, Sheamus and Butch and all these guys that are wrestlers, a couple of females that are from there, and for God's sakes, Paige's family is still tied to the WWE, and they still run a federation in Britain, right? In the UK. You're telling me, you're not telling me that they're going to go? No, they're not. They're not going to take their federation.
Nobody's taking their federation to Saudi Arabia. Nobody is. It's going to strictly be WWE, and that's my point. My point is that whether it was a larger federation, like AEW held some events, right? Whether it was a larger federation, whether it was just some private promoter who said, well, I'm going to have a wrestling convention and I'll hire some people, or somebody who's actually going to have wrestling matches. There were a ton of people from wrestling federations themselves to wrestlers themselves to literally just people, vendors, who would say, well, this is my opportunity to make a lot of money and I can set up somewhere and sell wrestling merchandise or whatever. And there was a whole plethora of things. It was an experience for fans. If it was held like in New York, okay, let's say it was held in New York, that whole week, there was nothing but event, convention, seminar. Everywhere you went, there was wrestling merchandise. It was like being in a Disneyland of professional wrestling. WWE has now said, yeah, too bad. That's not happening anymore. We're going to Saudi Arabia, and you can just, tough. By the way, this is the same people who pulled WrestleMania from another state and said, no, we're going back to Las Vegas. Too bad. You don't like it? Too bad. Las Vegas offered us more money. So in other words, you made a commitment to someone to actually have WrestleMania in their state and then said, oh, no, we're not doing that. Las Vegas made a better deal. So 2 times in a row, it's going to be Vegas. They're pissing people off, Tom. If they keep this up, I'm telling you that they are committing business suicide here. They're not only pissing off their fans, they're starting to piss off some of the people who want to host these events.
Well, here's the thing, Marcus. We talked about this last week when she said it on her show. This is why I think this whole thing with Stephanie McMahon saying what she said might be a way. Might be a way for TKO to go, you know what? I don't think this is working. The fans are turning on us. Stephanie and Triple H are basically the catalyst for the fans turning on us for what they're saying online. And then they go instead of trying to put out the fire, they turn around and make a deal with Saudi Arabia when the UK has been waiting for, 10, 12 years now?
Forever they've been waiting. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm telling you, you could say what you want about Vince McMahon. You don't have to like Vince McMahon as a human being. Vince McMahon would not have allowed this to happen. He would not have allowed this to happen. And if you want proof of it, just talk to the president of TKO, who literally said Vince McMahon was pricing things, running things so that this was a family-oriented type business, and we're no longer going to do that. We don't see WWE as a family-oriented business. They see it as a cash cow, and if they can promote this to the people who have the most money, that's what they're going to do. So, according to TKO, they would be perfectly happy if this became Wimbledon, where the only people that go are very rich, affluent people because nobody else can afford to go. or the Super Bowl, where, 95% of the people are rich, affluent people. And that's what they want to do. They want to eliminate the common person from professional wrestling. If you're the common person, then you stay home and watch it on your $30 a month ESPN and be happy. A seat in the arena is not for you. You don't get to go to the palace. You get to stand outside the palace and watch it on a screen. I'm telling you, they're pissing people off. They're pissing me off. And I've been a fan since I could waddle around in diapers, and I'm telling you, they're really pissing me off with this. Because you would think they would at least have a little decorum and say, we realize that going to Saudi Arabia is going to cut a lot of fans out of the experience. And we're sorry for that, but at this particular time, we felt it was in the best interest of our business. No, they're not doing that. They're just saying, yeah, too bad. Vince wasn't making enough money. Vince was catering to you people. Vince wanted the blue-collar worker there with his family. We don't want the blue-collar worker there with his family. We want the celebrities. We want the rich, the affluent. We don't want the plumber. We don't want the teacher. We don't want the electrician. Stay home. I can't believe it. I mean, honestly, I can't believe it. Todd, this is bad. I've not ran into one fan who thinks this is a good idea.
Right. The other night during that Worlds Collide pay-per-view, when they showed that video package, I heard fans chant, "You sold out."
Yes. Yes, that's a very good point. We'll be getting to this Worlds Collide thing in a minute, too, because that's important. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. Fans are starting to turn because it's so obvious now. I mean, you can't even blink without seeing another logo for a business on something, whether it's on a table, whether it's on a chair, whether it's on the ring apron, whether it's on the back of a wrestler's sneakers, whatever it happens to be, there's always some kind of a sponsorship. It's all about how much money can we pull. And I understand a business has to make money. I'm not against them making money. Vince McMahon made a ton of money. But they're taking it to a new level. They're basically saying, well, you know what? We have the ability and we have the means to charge tens and tens of thousands of dollars for tickets, and people will buy them. Not you. Not the 9-to-5 ham and egger. You can't afford it. We don't care about you. The people we want in the seats are the people who can fork over the most money. Well, I got news. It's always been the blue-collar, 9-to-5ers who've been the biggest wrestling fans. And now you're spitting on them and telling them, too bad. Too bad. I think they're going to live to regret this. I really honestly do. Anyway, let's get to the AEW situation because that's looking a little bit hairy too. As everybody knows, Warner Brothers Discovery is the people who air all of the AEW shows. And there has been strong rumor, although it's never been confirmed, that Warner Brothers Discovery does in fact own a part of AEW. Now, nobody has said, Tony Khan has not confirmed that. Warner Brothers Discovery has not confirmed that, but there's an awful lot of people sort of in the know who are saying they at least own a small portion of it. So that's where all their programming is. I'm now being led to understand that Paramount is getting ready to offer a deal to buy Warner Brothers Discovery. And if Paramount merges with Warner Brothers Discovery, I have a news flash. Paramount is hooked up with the UFC and TKO. And they are not going to air AEW. They are going to put in its place TNA, which is what they've always wanted to do. That's why they formed the partnership with TNA. They want TNA to be that thorn in the side of AEW. In other words, they want to replace AEW with TNA because they basically own and run TNA. They can say all they want, oh, no, we don't have control. They have complete control. They have complete control. And TNA will sell out in a heartbeat. So that's what they want. The WWE wants AEW gone. So let's just not pretend anymore that they don't think AEW is a threat. I had also released a video on our YouTube channel saying it's obvious now, with the counter programming becoming ridiculous to an extent, well, they'll even change what they're doing to counter program AEW. They do, in fact, consider AEW a threat. And they want them gone. And if Warner Brothers Discovery is eaten up by Paramount, AEW will be gone from that network. Now, can they find another network? Maybe, probably. Tony Khan and his dad got a ton of money. But then you have to think about it logically and say, wait, they're drawing 400,000 people. There's not a lot of big networks who are going to go crazy offering them all kinds of money for viewership of 400 or 500,000, Mike. So this could be a very sticky situation if this happens for AEW.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we talked about this. I mean, AEW is now a threat, and it'll remain until the WWE corrects their problem. It'll be a threat unless this whole thing. And apparently, the only thing that was a sticking point was in this possible merger is that the government, the U.S. government, the FCC, wasn't going to allow it to happen, right?
Yeah.
Now it looks like the FCC is now taking his hands off of it, and it's going to happen. So AEW is in trouble, and in trouble big. And, you know, I mean, yeah, they might get a contract from somebody, but it's not going to be the contract they now have with TNT and TBS, right? It's not going to be that contract. It's going to be something, I don't want to say worse, but lesser. Oh, and by the way, Marcus, I looked it up. The last big, huge event that was in Wembley Stadium, 1992 SummerSlam.
How do you like that? Yeah, wow, boy, the UK fans are so important to the WWE, aren't they? Oh, my. You see, this is the thing. You can't continually spit in the face of your fans. You can't do it. I wouldn't blame the UK fans if they said, okay, well, never mind. See, this is what Tony Khan was counting on. Tony Khan was thinking, well, you know what? We'll go over to the UK. We'll hold big events. And they did. And they filled up Wembley and everything. But then, you know, fans started to lose interest over there because it just wasn't being run the way that they were most happy with. Let's put it that way. And they're still a relatively new company compared to the WWE anyway. They don't have that WrestleMania feel. WrestleMania over the years really has become like the Super Bowl. I mean, there are people, wrestling fans, who consider it just like that. There are people that come from Ireland, the UK, Australia, Germany, Japan, everywhere to come see WrestleMania, and they come for the whole week. And they come for the whole festivities, and they say, oh, we got a whole itinerary planned where there are federations running on this night, and then there's going to be some conventions, and there's going to be some autograph signings here, and there's going to be a couple of shows here where people like sometimes Mick Foley or Dolph Ziggler would have like comedy shows, or just, you know, one-on-one where you could go in and hear him talk and ask him questions. There was a whole plethora of things that went along with WrestleMania the whole week. Now that's gone. At least for next year, it will be gone. And I got news. If you think Saudi Arabia is not going to keep making a bid, they're going to. What's to stop TKO from saying, yeah, you know, Saudi Arabia, they paid us so much money, we're coming back. They're already talking about saying maybe we'll hold 2 WrestleManias. One in Saudi. I mean, this is literally getting out of hand. It's literally getting out of hand. And AEW, who I thought they could maybe take advantage of this self-inflicted wound that the WWE's put on themselves, seems incapable of doing it. As the WWE ratings start to decline, I really kept my eye on AEW saying, you know what? Maybe fans are going to start to say, look, to hell with WWE. If they don't respect us as fans, we'll move on. Well, you're not moving on to AEW. Because as WWE ratings decline, so do AEW ratings decline. It's almost as if fans are losing interest in pro wrestling. And that's a bad thing for everybody involved. So I don't know. I don't know what TKO is trying to pull. I think this is a lousy idea. As far as the AEW contract with Warner Brothers Discovery, well, we know what they're trying to pull there. They're trying to basically drive AEW out of at least the higher tier marketplace, so they're not as visible.
Yeah, and that's again, that's basically Federation suicide. And you know what? At this point, Marcus, we tried. We were hanging out yesterday, and we attempted to watch the first match of the AAA event, and I don't think we got past that. It was if AAA is the best alternative that the WWE can come up with, then they hit a brick wall. It was, in my opinion, it was awful. And the WWE and TKO, they just shot themselves in the foot when they said that Vince McMahon priced his tickets and merchandise for families, because what else would you price it for?
No, they're pricing it for the elite. Now, as far as the AAA is concerned, I wasn't as harsh on it as some other people. I'm not a big Lucha fan. I'll tell you why I'm not a big Lucha fan. Too much of it looks extraordinarily choreographed. There's just too much of my opponent's doing nothing while I'm preparing to do my next move. There's too much of that. There's too much as I'm standing here waiting for you to climb. I'm standing here waiting for you to jump. I'm standing here while you're twisting my arm and walking up the turnbuckle. I'm not attempting in any way to get free. There's just too much of that. Second thing is, because there's so many flips and dives and complex things, there's a lot of botches. So you have to put up with the fact that there's going to be a lot of botches, and it's going to look extraordinarily choreographed. So it's never been my thing. I'm not a huge Lucha fan. But I'll tell you this, I enjoyed Worlds Collide more than I enjoyed some of the WWE stuff. Because at least I felt like those athletes were trying. There seemed to be an energy there that's missing sometimes from the WWE. And it's always fun to watch Joaquin Wilde do that slingshot that sends him halfway up the rampway. And there's a couple of good moments in that. I thought Natty had a fantastic match with Apache. But here's the thing. You'll notice one thing. Vikingo, no longer the champion. Bobby Apache, no longer champion. Who is the champions? Oh, Dominic Mysterio and Natty. As soon as the WWE moved into that or took over that, Todd, they installed their own people as champions.
Right, like you said about AAA and everything, and about giving their own superstars championships out off of that brand, and during that pay-per-view that the other night, the Wyatts came in, the Wyatt Six to interrupt. It had those two clowns.
Yep. So this is what we're going to see. Now, again, to show you TKO's greed, you want to market AAA to a much wider audience of fans who may not be so familiar with AAA. There's probably a lot of WWE fans who said, I don't really follow AAA. I don't really know that much about Lucha. I know Rey Mysterio. I know Penta. I know, some of the Dragon Lee. But I don't know a lot about Lucha. So this is going to be my first or second experience really diving into Lucha. And you want to try to build up some of their stars, right? Well, you're not. You're shooting them down. You're basically saying, okay, well, they can't hang with the WWE people. But to make it even worse, the ones that are becoming popular, like the guy who has the gecko, what's his name? I don't even remember, but the guy who carries around the gecko puppet. That guy actually got semi-popular with the American audiences, and guess what they do in WWE? Oh, we're going to sell the puppet. We're going to sell that gecko puppet. For $60, $60. I want you to think about that for a minute. That's without shipping and handling. So you're going to order from the WWE Shop Zone, whatever the hell that puppet's name is, and it's going to cost you about $75. Do you think anybody's doing that? Who do you think's doing that? You think some family who's working 2 jobs and their kid loves wrestling and wants one of them things is going to say, we're shelling out $75 so you can walk around with a little friggin' stuffed animal puppet? No, they're not. So now you are actually taking his popularity away, because if that thing was $25 or $20 and affordable, there might be a lot more people saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to get one. And then, your friends see it and say, who's that? Oh, that's this guy. And then they watch him. And they say, oh, I want one, or I like that guy, or whatever. And that's how sometimes you get somebody over big. You're not going to get him over big by saying, oh, there's a few people clapping for him. Sell his merchandise for hundreds of dollars. It's not going to work. You're actually blocking him from becoming more popular. You're actually taking the opportunity away when you do something like that. Do you think that Stone Cold Steve Austin would have been as popular as he was if when his T-shirts came out, they were $75? People would have been like, well, I'm not buying one. And then people wouldn't have said, what's all these shirts going on? And what's going on with Austin 316? And everybody then it was a big snowball rolling downhill. That wasn't going to happen if they were $75. You're not going to see anybody walking around with that puppet. I'm telling you, you're not going to. So they shoot themselves in the foot quite often when they do things like that, Mike.
They do. I mean, as I recall, they didn't do that when Bray Wyatt came out with the buzzard and the witch and all those puppets. They didn't do that with those puppets. They didn't do that with Socko was a sock, but that's neither here nor there. But all the recent stuff that they did, they never did that stuff. And look what they did with when they finally decide to bite the bullet and buy TNA. Who do you think's going to be the TNA champion?
Yeah, one of their guys. Ain't no question about that. But, I'm glad you brought up the Mr. Socko thing, because the WWE did something smart there. It's a sock. It probably cost a nickel to make. You know what they did? They packaged him in with that Mick Foley DVD set and said, oh, you want Mr. Socko? Go buy the DVD set. We get a free Mr. Socko. A lot of people did that. And then everybody had the socks, When Paul Heyman realized that Al Snow was going to be popular with that head thing, he sold those styrofoam heads. He didn't sell them for $150 because then nobody would have bought them. He sold them for, $15, $20, and everybody bought one and was shaking their heads when they came out. And it made it look like, wow, look how popular this guy is. Everybody's got a head. If everybody had a gecko, that guy would be skyrocketed to the top. When you sold the sheep masks, they were like $15. Everybody had a sheep mask when Bray Wyatt first showed up because they weren't that expensive. And everybody, I want one. Okay, that's cool. That's a great souvenir. And everybody wore it when he came out. If they were $100, people would have said, well, I'm just not buying one. This is what they don't seem to understand. It's amazing that a company who's saying we want to maximize our profits don't realize it's only so far you can go before you start to wane in your popularity. And when that happens, nobody's going to buy your merchandise. Nobody's going to buy the tickets to your event. You've got to stay popular in order for that to happen. It's much better to sell 1 million things at $10 than it is to sell 100,000 things at $50. And they just don't understand that. And the reason they don't understand it is they're totally out of touch with who their audience really is. They're not living in the real world. They're looking at these events and they're saying, look at the celebrities that's coming, the athletes, the actors, the other, the musicians and rappers and high-profile business people and executives, and that's what we want. The executives and their families, they're going to spend $30,000 on a seat. They're going to buy their kids anything they want. They're going to do X, Y, and Z. They're not going to be a piker sitting up there in the 100 millionth row with binoculars saying, I don't know whether that's R-Truth or John Cena. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. And it is a recipe for disaster. It cannot and will not last. I'm telling you, it cannot and will not last. This is a bad situation. Tom, I don't know what they're figuring. I mean, again, trying to think of what the guy's name is. I know who will know. Todd, what's the lizard guy's name?
Mr. Iguana.
There you go, Mr. Iguana. So Mr. Iguana could be super, super, super popular with the kids. If you said, look, it costs us $4 to make that stupid iguana. So we'll charge $20. We're making $16 an iguana. We'll sell 100,000 of them. And every kid will have one. And everybody will be like, what's this thing with the iguana? And I want one now. You know how that works, right? It starts to become a fad. Oh, everybody's got one. I want one. That's not going to happen under $75. So Mr. Iguana doesn't get the benefit of that popularity. He doesn't get to have that merchandise moving like that. And the widespread appeal of people saying, who is that? What is that? It's a shame because you might have had something with that. You can't price yourselves completely out of the market. And that's what they're doing. So I don't know, Tom. Again, if I were those TKO executives and I thought, well, we might have something with this Mr. Iguana, and we did just acquire AAA, I would say, okay, well, let's market his merchandise. We do want to make a profit. It doesn't have to be a killing. We make $16 an item, we'll sell it to 100,000 people. As soon as everybody sees these iguanas on kids' arms, more people are going to want them, and more people are going to be curious, and more people are going to look up Mr. Iguana, and he's just going to become more and popular and more popular and more popular. Then if we decide we'll push him a little bit more in the AAA and maybe bring him in WWE here and then, you might have had something. Instead, they price him right out of the market, and believe me, he's going to be yesterday's news in a month.
But here's the thing. With TKO pricing them out of the market, and it's supposed to be quasi for kids, right? You're pricing them out of the market. You think mom and dad are going to buy a $60 puppet for their kid?
No.
That's going to be popular for about 7 days? No, absolutely not. Let me take you a trip down memory lane for a minute. I was at a live event in, 2018, I believe, at Madison Square Garden. And it was a house show. The New Day came out. Now, before the New Day came out, we were waiting in line to get in, and right when you first, I think they were the main event that night versus the Usos. I can't say I remember who they were fighting, but they had unicorn horns. They had a stand right when you first walked in of unicorn horns, and let me tell you how many people, kids, adults, grandmas, grandpas, they were buying unicorn horns. You know why? Because they were $10.
Right.
$10.
That's my point. And so then your popularity grows and grows and grows because everybody wants one. And everybody can afford one. That's the point. By the time you get your Mr. Iguana, I said it was a gecko before, Mr. Iguana, it's $75 with shipping and handling. You double that, buy a real iguana and have it forever. I have no idea what they're thinking. Do they honestly think that some rapper is going to be like, oh, I'm going to get myself one of them iguanas? And that's, come on. You know what the WWE used to do? Because I actually was chosen many times for it. I used to get front row a lot in some of the places that I watched wrestling. And we would have people come up to us, my party and me, and say, here's a free Bret Hart banner. Here's a free Undertaker urn. Here's a free whatever. When we come back from commercial break, hold it up, and we're going to get a shot of you in the audience holding it up. Because you know what that does? It makes other people want to buy it. That's exactly what would have happened with this iguana. It just goes to show you how out of touch they are with reality. And it's going to come back to bite them in the ass. Now, as far as the AAA thing is concerned and Worlds Collide, again, I didn't hate the event. It's not really my thing, but I enjoyed it in some respects more than I do Raw and SmackDown, because at least it felt like there were people there who were really busting their ass and trying to impress us. Cruz del Toro, I thought, was very impressive. Joaquin Wilde, I know they're WWE guys, but they were both very impressive, and it looked like they were trying hard. It looked like they were saying, look, this is my big chance here now. I'm never going to be anything huge in WWE unless I can make myself something big here, so let me give this a go. Now, to be honest with you, they were all upstaged by the midgets, because that whole match was really about the midgets, but at least they got their spots in, and they got to show people, look, I have talent. Natty, I'm watching Natty wrestle. I'm like, where's this? Where's this Natty been? Where's this Natty been? I'll tell you where she's been. She's been in the WWE where they said, oh, we got 6 minutes, honey, and, that's all we got. Get in there, and that's with your intros. So just get in there and do 3 moves and go home. If you kept giving us this Natty on a regular basis, hell, this is a Natty I'd love to watch. They don't do it. Now, here's the negative. If there's one negative I can really say, besides what I've told you about why I don't really like Lucha that much, the negative on this show is Conan is not a good announcer. He may be good in his podcast, and he may be a good analyst in dissecting wrestling angles, and he may be a good promoter. He is a lousy announcer. All he did was step on everybody else's lines all night. All he did was kept repeating, the fans are chanting for Lucha. Listen to the fans chanting for Lucha. This is Lucha. That's what this is. This is Lucha. JBL, you know what this is? This is Lucha. And JBL would say, man, I'll tell you, he's punched him in the face. So, yeah, but this is Lucha, though. That's not right. No, you're not right. JBL would say, oh, man, he's finished. No, he's not. No, he's not finished. I know him too well. You don't know him. This is Lucha. He's not close to finished. He just kept doing that all night long. He didn't add anything to the announcing. In fact, he detracted from it. I don't know if you listened to it, Mike, but I was getting really frustrated with it.
Yeah, some people are good, some people are bad, and he fits into the bad. I mean, I like Vampiro as an announcer. All right, he was fine.
Yep.
All right. Now, it is what it is with that. Now, I'm looking at the WWE website. The Lily doll, to get an autographed Lily doll, $149.
At least it's autographed. That's high. That's way high. But at least it's autographed.
At least it's autographed. Probably around $75. But that's not. You can bake it that it doesn't take that much to make one of those Lily dolls, right?
No.
How
many have you seen in the audience, Mike? When Alexa Bliss comes out, how many Lily dolls you see waving in the audience? I don't see any. So how many people are buying them at the gimmicks table? Nobody. Nobody's buying them. $75 even is too high. I don't know what Alexa Bliss's autograph is worth, but let's say it's worth $75. Then the doll is $75? Why is the doll $75? It's a piece of cloth with some stuffing in it. I mean, that is ludicrous. And there comes a point, no matter how much you love something, where you say, I'm not paying that, even if you can afford it. I've had this argument before. You go to a ballpark and you say, look, I love hot dogs. I'm going to get a couple of hot dogs at the ballpark. If they're $20 a piece, I don't care if I got $40,000 in my back pocket to spend. I'm not spending $20 on a hot dog because that's egregious. You're gouging me, and it's an insult. So there's a lot of people who even can afford it and say, oh, I could afford to buy 20 hot dogs if I want to at $20 a piece. But I'm not even going to buy one. Because when you charge me that much, you are literally laughing in my face, and you're just gouging me because you can. And I'm not going to play that game. And I'm one of those people. I'm not playing that game. I'm not dumb, and I know what these little stuffed animals cost to make when you send them over to China. That's where they're all coming from, okay? And you'll be lucky if it costs you $1 to make that Lily doll. And then you have Alexa Bliss sign it. And you say, now it's a $150 item. I mean, that's just egregious. And who do you think is going to buy those dolls, by the way? Do you think it's me? Do you think it's Mike or Todd or Tom? No. You know who's going to buy those Lily dolls? Kids. Mostly kids. Well, they can't afford it. It's $149 if you want it autographed, and I don't even know if you can get them if they're not autographed, but if you can, it's probably $75 or $80. Then you got to pay the shipping and handling to get it there. Or if you're at the event, it's probably even more money. That's just ridiculous. And that's why you don't see a lot of merchandise. When have you seen a lot of merchandise? Remember the grand old days of wrestling where everybody was waving the foam fingers and everybody was holding up T-shirts and everybody had some gimmick? Waving it around. Nobody's doing it anymore. And the reason is they can't afford it, Tom. They're not going to spend that kind of money. And the guys who do have that kind of money, the people who do have that kind of cash, they think, well, I'm above that.
Well, yeah. And I just, I was looking on, I was looking at the Funko Pops, and an Alexa Bliss Funko Pop is $10. You get more mileage out of that than getting a Lily doll for $150. I would rather buy a Funko Pop and support that brand than buy a Lily doll that costs $1 to make. It's outrageous. $150. Really I wouldn't pay $7.
I'm telling you. Listen, when it first came around, I'm like, oh, that would be kind of cool to have. I like creepy stuff anyway. And I like Alexa Bliss. I'm like, that'd be pretty cool. And I remember when Vince McMahon was running it at the time, they weren't that much. They were like $40. And I contemplated getting it and said, nah, what am I going to do with it? I'm not going to get it. And the marginalizing of things is important too. For instance, when we all on this show voted Angel Garza as the most impressive Raw debut of that year, I said, well, I'm going to support him because I want them to push him. I think he is somebody who they really, really could push. I think they might have found their next Eddie Guerrero. So I bought his T-shirt. Best way to support a wrestler and show the powers that be that people care about him is buy some of their merchandise. It was like $25. That's all it was. So you might very well say, I'm going to drop the $50 on a Cody Rhodes T-shirt. I'm going to drop the $50 on a Roman Reigns T-shirt. You might very well do that if you're a huge wrestling fan. But you're not going to do it on the marginalized guys. You're not going to do it on the smaller time guys. You're not going to buy an Otis T-shirt for that kind of money. You're not going to buy a Tozawa T-shirt for that kind of money. You're not going to buy a Carmelo Hayes T-shirt for that kind of money. So what does that do to them? It makes it look like, well, nobody's interested. Nobody's interested in buying your merchandise, when in fact they might be. But they can't justify spending that much. So now that advice is worthless. Because nobody's going to do it. If Angel Garza's T-shirt, when I went to buy it, was $50, I'd have said, okay, well, I'll just pass. I'm not spending $50 just to send a signal to the WWE that, hey, this is a guy you might have something with, because they don't care, really. And he's not going to sell enough of them to make it worthwhile. Same way with Elias. When Elias first showed up, I said the same thing, and I went and bought the T-shirt. I said, let's help him out, man. Let's show that we're interested in this character. they're not going to do this anymore, Mike, if they have these T-shirts the same price as Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Because if you're going to spend that kind of money, you're going to do it on somebody big like that.
Absolutely. And just remember this, couple things here. Remember when Bailey first came out and they had those Bailey buddies, right?
Yep.
But they didn't really sell those. But what they did sell was you've been to a swimming pool where they had those foam kind of long foam things, right?
Yeah,
that's what they were selling.
Right.
As a replacement. And everybody had one of those things. Everyone. Yep. And secondly, I remember back in the day when the wrestling buddies first came out, and you remember this, they were maybe $25, maybe.
Right.
What's that?
Right. Now I know inflation and things have went up. I get it can't stay $25 for 20 years. But you're not going to convince me. I understand what T-shirts cost because I had them printed up. I have T-shirts printed. And I know for a fact that if you get the amount that the WWE gets, I mean, if you get a few hundred, there's a pretty good discount. If you get 10,000, 30,000, 50,000, you know what the discount is? You'll be lucky if they're paying $2 a T-shirt. Lucky. And that's on the high end. And you're going to charge what? And again, that doesn't help your younger guys coming up who's trying to get popular. Because if some kid says, or even a teenager or whatever says, hey, man, I saved up $50, I'm going to buy a wrestling shirt. Let me see what it's on the WWE Shop Zone. And they see, well, I love Carmelo Hayes, but I can get a Roman Reigns T-shirt for the same money. Okay, well, then they're going to buy Roman Reigns, and Carmelo Hayes is out of luck. When in fact, if you said, well, they're $25, maybe you would have bought both. This is the problem. It's a vicious circle, Tom, and I don't think TKO understands that.
No, and it's something that's not sustainable. I mean, eventually, maybe not right away, but you'll see eventually more fans going, yeah, this isn't for me. And their merchandise tables, at live events or premium live events or what have you, get no sales or next to no sales because it's just not priced for the common, fan. And that's going to, I don't know if it's going to hurt them, right off the bat, but it will eventually.
Yeah, no, eventually it is. It may not right off the bat. Vince McMahon was smart. He realizes, look, I can get one of them foam fingers that says one of the wrestlers' names on it with a number 1 for probably 50 cents. Made for 50 cents. Maybe I'm even overpricing it. And I can sell it for probably $8 to $10. And everybody will buy one because if a family comes in and they say, well, I got 2 kids or 3 kids, I can't buy them all T-shirts. That's going to be $100. But man, if they all want one of them foam fingers and they can hold it up through the whole wrestling match and it'd be a part of, the show, yeah, I'll do that. $30, I get 3 of them, no big deal. And guess what the WWE gets in exchange for that? They get an audience who has so many of them fingers pointing, and everybody's like, oh, that's cool. Look at all those fingers they got pointing. Oh, that one says Hogan. That one says this one says Macho Man. I'd like one of those when I go to the wrestling events. And it's a vicious circle where people just say, I want one, like the unicorn horns. Everybody wanted one, right? You had adults with unicorn horns. Because, it's cool. It's a fad. Everybody wants one and it's affordable. But when it's not affordable, when you're going to charge $150 for a Lily doll, you've lost your sense of reality. You've just absolutely lost it. Last year at WrestleMania, I watched a guy go to the WrestleMania convention prior to WrestleMania where they had all the merchandise. And they had lost their goddamn mind. He's literally showing, this is this much, and I'm like, are you insane? If you bought a WrestleMania ticket, let's just say you were local, you lived in Vegas, You bought a WrestleMania ticket and you went and bought some merchandise and whatever, you're going to be dropping $3 or $4 grand. That's crazy for the average person. The average person makes what? I don't even know anymore, but probably less than $1 grand a week. Most people, who just starting out in life, you're not making $1 grand a week working at McDonald's. You're not making $1 grand a week working at Walmart. You're not making $1 grand a week working in a lot of places. So if you're not even making $52,000 a year, I doubt very greatly you're going to take $3,000 or $4,000 of your money and say, well, that's disposable income. It's not. So who are you pricing out of the market here? You're pricing the college kid who's working and trying to pay his way through college and he's got a part-time job. You're pricing out the families who are paying their mortgage and their car payments and their electric bills and putting their kids through school, and they're trying very hard to put clothes on their back and food on the table, and they're like, we just don't have that much money left over to drop $3 grand on a wrestling event. And TKO is telling you in no uncertain terms, okay, then it's not for you. We don't really even want it to be for you. I gave that analogy before of a restaurant because I knew a guy who opened up a restaurant, and he absolutely flat out told me, I'm pricing my menu so high that it keeps the riff-raff out. Your average person's not going to be able to afford my restaurant. So if they see the meals, and they see the meals are $40 and up, the people who are just the riff-raff, they're not coming. I want the high-end people. I want the people who want to drop $75, $100, $150, $200 on a bottle of wine. He went belly up. He went belly up in a year because the people that could afford that type of dining didn't find his restaurant high quality enough. And the people who would have found his restaurant high quality enough could not afford it. Well, that's the WWE. Eventually, the people who can afford these $70,000 tickets and $200 Lily dolls are going to say, yeah, but this isn't worth it. This is a kind of a lowbrow form of entertainment. I could go do something much better with that money. I could go to the Caribbean. I could go do this. I could take a week's vacation in Hawaii. And then you're screwed, aren't you? Because the people who do think this is a great form of entertainment can't afford it, and the people who could afford it say, yeah, you're not good enough. You're going to be the people that they say you're not good enough to. Oh, the WWE, that's sort of lowbrow entertainment. We toyed with it for a while, but we're done with it. That's what's going to happen, Mike. You wait and see.
It really is, and that's the thing. And my only point about the wrestling buddies is at the time they were being maybe $20, $25. But I knew, and you get a Hulk Hogan or Ultimate Warrior or whatever, and then I knew several guys that had multiple wrestlers of those wrestling buddies. They'd spend $100, $200 just on wrestling buddies because they were $25, right?
You're looking at them, Mike. I have every single one of them. I have Ted DiBiase. I have Randy Savage. I have Hulk Hogan. I have Jake the Snake Roberts. I have the Road Warriors. Who else? Big Boss Man. I have them all. I have every single one of them. So there's your proof. If you think for 1 minute that if they were $100 a piece or $75 a piece, I'd have any of them, you lost your mind. I wouldn't have bought one. So there you go. It's as simple as that. It's tragic. I'm telling you, this is getting to a point where I don't know what's going to happen. I worry. I worry very much about the future of professional wrestling as it pertains to your everyday fan, because I think it's no longer for your everyday fan. Anyway, folks, thanks for listening. We will be back here on Tuesday with a Monday Night Raw report.
You're listening to Wrestlechat Radio.